everybody, it's me, John Ward, and I am back with another One Filmmaker, One Film. And today my guest is...
Hello, my name is David C. Hayes, not to be confused with all the other David Hayeses, apparently. And I am a screenwriter primarily, graphic novelist. I used to dabble as an actor, and currently I don't do much of any of that stuff anymore. So this is all was fun. Like, I don't know, it was the worst intro ever. Oh my god! All right, I'm setting the bar low.
Yeah. Now, so before we get into anything, is today we're going to be talking about Rottentail.
Yep.
But since you had just brought it up in your intro, why don't you do much of that stuff anymore?
Well, I was on the in Phoenix and LA and doing all that stuff like 2010. And then I had to move back to Michigan for a family issue. I had a family member pass away, and so I moved back with my wife to raise my niece. And there's just not a lot of production that goes down in Michigan of that ilk. So I really kind of transferred everything over to graphic novels, and my current career as an administrator in a university.
Oh, okay. Any thoughts of going back to, acting, writing, any of that stuff?
I still write, and that's still something that I can do and I have fun with. Not as much as I used to, but I don't foresee going back to the world of acting. I did some theater after I moved. There was a couple of projects, and other than that, I'm getting old. I'm getting old, and the grind is the grind.
Well, and the good thing is that as we talked about in previous conversations, you're going to be writing Axmis 5. So I'm very excited with that. So
yeah, I'm fascinated with other people's worlds. I love like public domain superheroes, stuff from the 40s and 50s. So I've got a collection of those stories that I've created coming out next year sometime, I think. But I love sequels, and I will jump on any sequel. And I especially love, my favorite thing ever is holiday themed horror movies. Essentially,
nice.
Rottentail. So
yeah, good point. Yeah, Easter, yeah.
And so and I love the not to like verbally fillet my host, but I love the first Axmis, the few Axmis. I'm on the hook for number 4 and 5. So, but one of my favorite movies of all time is Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Oh yeah,
and that was one of the things that started this whole journey for me, and at the age of 14, I believe.
Yeah, same thing with me. That I've always loved slasher films and horror films, and holiday ones, especially Christmas. But when Silent Night, Deadly Night came out, that kind of changed everything. And I'm a fan of parts 2 and 3. I can live without 4 and 5, but they're still included in there as the collection. But own them all.
I think I give 4 the Halloween 3 treatment. If it didn't say Silent Night, Deadly Night, it would be a wonderfully disgusting witch movie.
Yeah, I thought they could have. There's been a few chances, with some of these films where they could have done their Halloween 3, and I wish that they would have with part 5 gone back to maybe like continuing from part 3. So I'm one of the few people who likes part 3.
I like them all. Do you want to hear my pitch for Silent Night, Deadly Night 6 that ties the whole thing together?
All right, let's hear it.
All right. So the Cult of Lilith, which is the part 4 cult, locates Dennis, the kid from Toymaker, who inadvertently inherited the Toymaker properties, and they commission him to create a Santa automaton that they'll resurrect the spirit of both Billy and Ricky into it, turning it into a killing machine so they can get enough souls to bring Lilith back. But the Mecha Kringle realizes that what it's doing is naughty, and what they're doing is incredibly naughty, so it turns on them.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I love sequels.
Yeah, surprisingly, I mean, I kind of enjoy. What I tend to like with sequels is the destruction of what happened in part one is included in part two. So something like, when you, I guess in some cases it could be a part three too, like Jurassic Park 3 and stuff, when you go back to the original park, or the original Westworld from the 70s, they in Future World, they go onto that set, and where all the murders took place. So I tend to love that type of stuff, and I always hope that they include something from the first film into a sequel, especially if it's like horror, sci-fi, or something like that. It's always nice.
Maybe we're the Easter egg generation.
I think so. And speaking of Easter eggs, you made you wrote Rottentail.
Super segue.
Yeah. So well, before we get into that, I do want to show I have a couple DVDs here of stuff that you've done that I've really enjoyed. This is one that you sent me called it's Backwoods 1 and 2. You were even nice enough to sign up for me. There it is, right there. And on the back,
nice enough.
So it's got that there, and this you gave me permission to even make part 3. I believe you gave Philip Tricky and myself to make part 3, and because he's the one who actually, even though I've known you on Facebook and for many years and stuff, where's my figure? There's Backwoods never, to be honest, didn't really enter, I don't know, kind of like my world for a while. And then Philip's like, you got to see Backwoods. You have to see it. I'm like, oh crap, that's David. I need to see this. And then he gave me his copy, and I had it sitting on my table, and my cat jumped up on the table and spilled coffee all over the original DVD and ruined the cover and everything. So I was really bummed, and I was going to buy it again. And then you were nice enough to send both Philip and I copies of this, which has both.
That's one smart cat.
Yeah. Well, I like Backwoods. I don't know. I called him a dumb cat at the time. And then 2 that I really like is you were in Machined.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the back of it. And then I didn't know that there was a sequel. You told me that, and which is called Reborn.
Right.
And I've enjoyed both of these. I've actually seen them both twice. And there's the back of that one. So you definitely have a like a library of movies, books, graphic novels, plays. I mean, you've done a ton of stuff. So which is really impressive, and I'll put the link down to your website so people can take a look at it. So
thank you.
Oh yeah, sure. No, definitely, you're welcome. So let's so we're going to get into Rottentail, and which you created the character, you wrote the graphic novel, and then that was turned into a film, which you were the screenwriter of. Yes. You were and also like an on-set consultant, among other things, which I'll get into. So first, let's start with the graphic novel. How did you come up with the graphic novel idea?
So I was working in a DVD distribution company in Mesa, Arizona at the time. And this was in the early 2000s, 2001, 2002. And it was a Dead Alive / Spectrum Films. And while I was there, I was getting really deep into the distribution process, learning what not to do from an awful group of distributors that screwed everyone that ever came their way. And they even, that's the first place that released Backwoods, and they even like dicked me on my royalties, and I worked for them in the shipping department. So yeah, that's the level they were at. And so they were asking about holiday horror because they had just hooked up with Jerry Smallwood of Alpine, I believe, films, and they released Jack Frost. And so Jerry Smallwood was like, well, I'm actively searching for holiday themed horror stuff. And I loved holiday themed horror stuff. Like we just talked about, I absolutely loved it. I think the idea of taking tradition and smashing it and throwing it on its head and making people feel really icky about just the most ridiculous things we do. Like, you know, Easter is ridiculous. It's parts, you know, a Christian mythology. It's parts, you know, we conquered some Romans, but we need to keep the fertility pagan stuff in there. So I thought of the idea of the Easter Bunny one. And so it started as a screenplay. It didn't start as a graphic novel. It started originally as a screenplay. And I went through it and I was like, hey, Jerry, and Yvette Hoffman was the other owner at the time. Like, here, I did this, you know, I think it's good. They said, yeah, it's great. And then they went out of business. And so, which is just, it was a good thing for everyone involved. Absolutely everyone involved. So the screenplay sat around for a while, and I actually got it to, man, who made Cabin Fever? Eli Roth. I got it to Eli Roth's people, and they loved it. And they were gonna do something with it there, but then they disbanded whatever production company they did for Cabin Fever because he moved somewhere else. So it felt like it was like this cursed idea that everyone thought was fun. And I met an artist named Kurt Belcher via an old like comic book professional website called Digital Webbing, where you could like post job offers and things. And we hooked up there, and I said, hey, I got this the screenplay, but a giant mutant Easter bunny goes on a killing spree, absolutely stupid proportions. And he's like, I'm in. So my friend Kevin Moyers and I, who you saw in Reborn and Machined, helped me to adapt that, take that screenplay, put it in a comic book format because he was a comic guy. And we got it to Kurtz, and this is about 2005 or 2006 is when Kurt started on it. He did it spare time style, and that finished about 2007. We self-published after going to the San Diego Comic-Con and handing out free samples of Rottentail for possible distribution that no one wanted. But of note, I did run into Eli Roth there, and I mentioned that I thanked him for his company taking a look at my screenplay. He didn't listen to me. He yelled, "We're not accepting any submissions," and ran away immediately, which was hilarious. Like, he just thought I was trying to hit him up for a job. It was great. And Kate Beckinsale touched my butt on accident at that show. So that's another thing that.
There you go.
That was wonderful.
Bucket list number one done.
Right. She went all underworld on me. And, actually, her hand like brushed my left flank. Haven't washed it since. And so no one wanted Rottentail, and it sat. We sold maybe 7 copies total of this graphic novel until like talked about, I stopped acting. I had to move to Michigan for some family issues. And around 2015, I met Travis McIntyre, who was starting a company called Source Point Press, and he was looking for intellectual properties. And I was like, oh, I got this graphic novel. It was a publishing company called Source Point Press, specifically for comics. Like, I got this. No one seems to like it, but I think it's a lot of fun. It's complete B-movie goofiness. And he's like, oh, well, you need a new cover. So he puts a new cover on it, and it goes nuts. It goes absolutely crazy. And so we take it on tour. We've been all over the country with it as a graphic novel. And I think it's sold maybe in the 20,000 range at this point. For an indie graphic novel, which is a lot of fun. And at the time, I was on tour with them, and so we would do all the signings. We were at the New York Comic-Con, it was at San Diego. We were all over the place with it. It's what in the other titles that Source Point has put out. And as we started moving through, mainly from Travis, the Travis McIntyre, the Source Point Press editor-in-chief. And at the time, I was represented by Lakeshore. as a screenwriter. And my friend Brian Skiba was also represented as a director. And we got together, and I had produced Brian's first feature, Blood Moon Rising, like way back in 2007, 2008. It's a fun zombie werewolf spaceship movie set in the 60s. And so he'd gone on from there to produce some other things, like Crushed Velvets, and he had a really good deal with Hallmark. So he does all kinds of Hallmark Christmas movies. If you've ever seen Dean Cain either save or destroy Christmas, then Brian Skiba has directed it. So, I talked to Travis and the higher ups at Lakeshore that maybe we could do this team up again, back together again, myself and Brian. So Brian took the graphic novel. It's doing really well independent wise. It's just a black and white indie comic essentially, and he and I took the original screenplay and we kind of morphed it. So we took the graphic novel and we went far more gonzo with it than the graphic novel was. So this is a case where the book is much tamer than the movie. So if you can imagine that, the book itself is it reads very much like a Silent Night, Deadly Night. Like it's a by the numbers. It's a horror comedy, of course, but it's a pretty pedestrian in terms of its plotting. And because the original screenplay I did was designed for a budget in like the 20K range, 20 to 50K is all they were willing to spend on it. Now we're in a completely different realm with a bigger budget that we're looking at under $1 million, and things got bigger at that point. So we went really crazy. We thematically changed a lot of it. The anti-religious, the religious hypocrisy theme wasn't apparent in the graphic novel. It wasn't a big part of it, but it's a really big part of the movie, as you saw.
Yeah,
and that was one of the real big thematic additions, which is also heavily influenced the graphic novel sequel that Kurt, the original artist, is currently working on.
Oh, nice.
Maybe that was an over. Did I over answer that question?
Well, we're gonna go back anyway. So,
okay.
Because what does it take then? Because as we know, most, if you're going off of a graphic novel or comic book, like let's say The Mask as an example. Yeah. Mask is very adult. It's very violent. It's an original idea for like a comic book that then they had to make into a film, which then was more kid friendly. So
right.
what went into taking a screenplay and turning that into a graphic novel, and then taking that and then turning it back into a screenplay again?
Sure. So the original screenplay was, I think it ran about 90 pages. You were in and out. It was your basic horror comedy, the Jack Frost model, because that's what they were looking for at the time, and not the Michael Keaton Jack Frost, the Avalanche Jack Frost. And
I would hope so. Yes.
Yeah. Both horrible in their own ways. And and so taking that and what we initially did was break it down into 3 22-page issues. So what it doesn't have in a screenplay are those real even acts, right? So you're coming in with that act 1, your act 2 is pretty big where the exposition is, and then you have a real quick act 3. So what we needed to do is separate that and make our act breaks a little more even, and get them broken on a cliffhanger. So if you're doing 20 pages, 20 pages, and 20 pages, you need to have someone want to come back for the next one. And at the same time, keeping the sanctity of the story. So really the pacing is really what changed. When I write very visually anyway. And so being able to break down the screenplay into panels was not super difficult once we got over the idea that it's the illusion of motion. So a graphic novel, you can't say, John Ward runs from door A to door B, because there's no motion, there's no running. So panel 1, John Ward is at door A, panel 2, John Ward is out of breath at door B. So it's this illusion of motion that we have to get through. So these physical, logical leaps was the biggest learning curve. Arguably, we didn't do it great because that was really our first time at it, but it worked out well enough. And translating that from that screenplay to there, also knowing that we couldn't afford color, eliminating anything that was a color cue. So some of the kills in the Rottentail movie that are very colorful, and there's the that we'll get into with the saran wrap and all the Easter type things. Those were in the original screenplay, but how do I communicate the color theme in black and white? So those had to be adapted as well. And so between the color, the lack of color, the illusion of motion, and plotting it differently, it turned into a little bit of a different animal. It felt different, and that, of course, the 3 issues didn't pan out. We actually, much like the film falling apart in the beginning, we signed 3 different contracts with 3 different comic companies that all fell through. One of them was even solicited in the Great Big Previews catalog, which is the giant catalog for comic book stores that they get every month. So if you get in previews, it's like a thing. And that company, right after they solicited in the giant catalog, they went out of business too. So maybe Rottentail is just a curse. Everything it touches, it curses. But that was it. So we took that, and then it went. We eventually did it in 1 volume in the for Source Point Press with the new cover, and the cover worked out brilliantly. It started to sell. It was pretty coherent. Now we need to take that and retranslate it. So we kind of scrapped the graphic novel stuff. We didn't really adapt from the graphic novel. We took that original screenplay because that was in the proper format already. And Brian and I hacked away at it, and just as we would tend to do on other projects that we've worked on together in the past, try and outgross one another and out offend one another. And that's kind of how we resulted in this wonderful opus of ridiculousness.
Because the film really is a giant comic book. It's
Yep.
lit like a comic book. It feels like a comic book. It's shot like a comic book. I mean, there's always like 2 to 3 lights, like different colored lights on the scene. Normally like the greens, blues, reds, things like that. So it's very colorful. It's very Eastery looking. So that's something that immediately
totally on purpose.
I noticed. Yeah, it is that it felt more kind of like a comic book, kind of Creep Show, like the original Creep Show, how they would throw that red up on the wall and the green up on the wall.
I love the look of that.
Yeah, that seems to influence a lot of people.
It does. And I think, another influence on that Brian and I talked about, which I think is a little understated, is Mario Bava and that use of color in the Gallo stuff. And, you look at something like Inferno, and you look at something like Tenebrae, and that looks like how a comic book should look too. So that really, that feel with it. And the great irony is that it's a black and white comic. So the movie is a full color comic spectacle.
That's funny. So it's now most people would go the cheap route. So it would be guy in bunny suit is killing people with whatever weapon he happens to have. Right. You didn't do that. You did a full American Werewolf in London kind of transformation with the main character,
with the bunny suit.
And then at one point he does put on the bunny suit. So yeah, so you do fall into that for a second, which is more in tribute to that type of thing. I think it's more of a following that cliche, right, but in an ironic type of way. And so why not just stick it? Why not just save some money and just put him in a bunny suit?
Okay, so there's a bunch of different reasons for that. The main one was everyone does that. There's how many Easter Bunny kills and Hoppity Cotton whatevers are out there. There's lots, and putting someone in a bunny suit is it's really kind of low hanging fruit. And I was insistent, and Travis was incredibly insistent that the rabbit has to work. It really does. I mean, if everything else can be a pile of crap, the whole thing, the acting, we can shoot it terribly. If the sound's okay, and if the bunny man works, then it's going to succeed. and you're not going to get that by just throwing the old Easter suit on. So that design was actually, and I forget their names, I think it's the Thompsons. They were Pirates of the Caribbean is where they came off of, and where they were doing designs for them. And so they designed our mutant rabbits, so our little mutant guys in the beginnings, and they designed the suit. And the suit is, I couldn't be happier with it. Corin in the bunny suit, he can act through it, he can emote through it, he can deliver dialogue through it. You can see his eyes, you can see his face contorts. And you know, if that wasn't going to work, if you could see the zippers, even it would have been in that Roger Corman level. And I think, yeah, the movie is not, that's the point of it, we have a big dumb fun, but I do think that the bunny itself, Rottentail himself, is a piece of movie magic, and I'm quite proud of him.
Yeah, he looks really good. And the one of the things that I liked was his slow transformation, that it wasn't just, you know, what's happening to me, and then the next scene he's the full Rottentail. Is he starts off with like the hand, and then that goes into, he goes like, oh, my foot, and then you see the foot, and then like half of his face where he has like a whisker coming out, he's got the teeth. Is that it's a slow progressive of him changing into this, instead of just either just showing a shadow up on the wall, or just cutting to him going, oh my god, I'm changing, and then next shot he's changed.
So the graphic novel is a quick change. It's more Jekyll and Hyde with the potion. And so we decided to play it out with this, and then include, expand the role of the general, because the general had a very small part in the graphic novel. And it was really more about the vengeance that Rottentail was going to take out on his hometown of Easter Falls. That took up the bulk of things. So we really took the moment to expand the transformation process, the deal that Peter's going through. Brian is an absolute genius, and the rabbit poop still kills me.
That was funny. I
love a good shit joke.
Excuse me. Well, and it wasn't just human shit. It was the rabbit pellets that come out. And so that was pretty funny. That was pretty smart. And it just, I think everything worked. And I agree with you that if you didn't buy into the costume, like if you saw part of it peeling off or whatever, you wouldn't buy into it at all. And then the actor who plays him does a really good job, almost kind of a Golem type of job, you know, for like Lord of the Rings, is he's talking to himself, and 1 second it's him, and then 1 second it's Rottentail, and then he slowly fully turns into Rottentail. And that I really liked.
His casting was absolutely perfect. So then that's Corin Nemec, who you may remember as Parker Lewis from Parker Lewis Can't Lose.
Oh yeah, okay, right.
And Richard Speck, he played Bundy. I mean, he's done all kinds of things. So Brian, a lot of our actors came from Brian's hookup with Hallmark and Lifetime. So there's a bunch of these Lifetime and Hallmark people that are in on this. And Corin completely committed. He went, you know, balls deep in Rottentail, and he was down for anything. So I had some great times on set with him. We're making up new dialogue. He's coming up with horrible jokes. You know, if you pay attention, you'll notice that Rottentail never ever swears. He never ever says dirty, naughty words. And that's because Peter would never ever say dirty, naughty words. He does horrible, awful things, but you know, he keeps his language clean, which I think, you know, it's one of those affectations of Rottentail that we wanted to keep intact. So, and he was integral in that.
Well, and so with like his one-liners, like I'll give an example since you've seen Aximus. My script for Aximus and the Killer Santa, my one-liners were awful. They were in the script. They were horrible. All they were just Freddy Krueger ripoffs. You know, here's an axe, bitch. You know, was basically like what I was writing. And then John, who played, you know, the killer Santa, he's like, "Can I make up my own one-liners?" And I'm like, "Well, it's okay." And all of a sudden, he's doing "Welcome to the North Pole," and he's shoving up a pole in somebody's back. And you know, he's like, "Let's get stoned," and throws the stone on the girl. And it's like, okay, these are 1,000 times better than what I did. And I've always given him credit for that. Like, I've never taken credit for those lines. And but as a writer director, sometimes your lines just aren't good. Somebody else has a better idea, so you have to step back and just kind of accept that and use those. With Rottentail's one-liners, was anything similar to that, or was that more script with some added, like, ad-libbed stuff?
Right. So there was a bunch scripted. Lots of it was ad-libbed. So in, like, not Rottentail himself, but so our Reverend, who was just amazing. We just let him go. After the first day, we're like, "Oh, you just do you. Just you have fun. You just get to this point, and then all will be well." He killed it. He absolutely killed it. But Brian and myself and Corin and Travis and everybody was really pitching in on the one-liners. And I mean, that's really kind of indicative of having such a big set. It was probably the biggest crew that I've ever worked with. It was like the third largest budget, but we had a lot of people committed. And, you know, Corin himself, he had spent more time developing the character than I ever did over, like, you know, 15 years of this graphic novel and slinging it and trying to sell it and making sequels. He really, really buried himself in it, which is, I mean, between him and the suit, that had to happen.
Yeah, and I thought everybody did a really good job. And one thing that I did write down in my notes is, like, why is it that the nice guy always has to have the painful transformation, that he's, you know, he's just being him. He's trying to be this nice guy. I mean, we saw it with Toxic Avenger and many other movies where it's just a normal guy who all of a sudden goes through this horrible, painful transformation.
Mm-hmm.
And the bad guy always stays the same. Like, you never really see, in a couple things they do change, but it's like normally the bad guy is just the bad guy. He's, and that's not a bad thing. I'm not trying to put it that way, like there's no character, but it's like the bad guy doesn't fall into a vat of toxic waste, you know. So why do you think that we, and you as a writer who's done many things, why do you think that's kind of a trope, that it's the wimpy nice guy who wants the girl has to go through this painful transformation to kind of do things right?
Okay. I actually have an answer for this.
Oh.
And it's one I actually believe in. So it's, you know, I'm a big theme person, you know, theme first, metaphor first. You know, what am I trying to say? You know, like my novel Cannibal Fat Camp is about body image. It's just wrapped in absolute awful disgustingness. So when we talk about why does the good guy have to go through the painful change and the bad guy doesn't change? The winner is the one that becomes their best self. And the bad guy is unwilling to change. So he'll never become his best self. The good guys have to go through this painful growth process, and they become their ultimate selves. The Toxic Avenger, which is the spirit animal of Rottentail. You know, Superman's planet had to blow up, and he had to grow up an alien in an unfriendly world. Batman had to lose his parents. So without these painful changes, you can never grow into, you know, what you were always meant to be. And we can argue that the bad guys never get to that state. They never get out of the larva stage. They never get to be the butterflies.
I mean, in some, because you brought up Batman, and so that reminded me of the Joker. So the Joker, I guess, depending on what, you know, movie or series or whatever it is. I mean, if you go with, you know, Tim Burton's Batman, you know, he did go through a painful transformation, but he was already evil to, you know, to begin with. And then he just became more evil.
So then that goes to how his longevity too. You know, the other villains don't last. I mean, they're fly by night. It's whatever, well, who's next? Scarecrow, great. Oh, Penguin, wonderful. That the Joker is the same level as Batman. It's his final form. He's gone through the painful process to be this final form. And if all of our villains did it, look at the success of Darth Vader. There's a guy that went through the painful transformation to become his final form. It's a horrible, awful thing.
Right.
And that's why we hated Palpatine so much, because he didn't do that. He was just fly by night. So, our good guys, just our good characters have to do that. The ones that persist, the one that carry the franchises. And one could argue Joker is carrying a franchise right now.
Yeah. And it's, to kind of keep with the character, Pastor Jake is, so he's the bully at the beginning, and then he becomes this pastor. Does he go, like, is he a bully who then finds religion and becomes this pastor, but then becomes, obsessed with money? Or is he a bully going, ooh, I can make a lot of money as a pastor, I'll just become a pastor and yell God everywhere, and I'll make a ton of money?
Option B. He does not believe a thing. And he never did.
But yet he's got a ton of money to go along with it.
He does. And so, I mean, at first, so the kid that played young Jake is massive. He's a big kid. And then the person who played Peter was very small. And when we got the adult casting, it's absolutely opposite. So that we talked about it, and that kind of plays into the, he's never going to get to his final form as a small man. And Peter's is of course, a much bigger person. So yeah, but Jake is great. Billy McNamara, he was like massive in the 90s, and he came in and he nailed it. Between those two, oh my gosh, so much fun.
Yeah, it looked like everybody was having a good time, and I was very upset when he, of course, at the beginning snaps the bunny's neck, and I always get, and I know it's fake, and
right.
I have in in Meat Hook 4 they run over a cat and it's cut in half, and it's obviously they're dummies and they're fake and all that stuff, but it still bums me out. You just got that cute little rabbit there, and he's like, oh, click, and that's that's it. And so I got a little John Wick feel. I'm like, this guy's going after him because they even mentioned near the end, he's still pissed off about you killing his bunny. And it's like, right. Yes, you don't kill a man's dog, you don't kill a man's bunny, it's like people, whatever, but you just don't kill the pet. You never kill the pet.
Maybe the John Wick guys read the graphic novel.
There you go. You never know. You said, you said a ton of them was sold, so somebody might have gone, what, let's change this from a bunny to a puppy, and this way, David can't sue us. So even though they should give you that little asterisk at the end, thanks to.
I'll take it. I'll take the asterisk.
Now, another thing that I saw in this, and this is something I thought I'd ask you, is once again with your experience, why do you think serums are green? Did we get that from Reanimator, or did it start before that? Because now everybody does serums as green.
So that it's a Reanimator homage for us, which is another one of those spirit animals that really informed this whole thing. And Herbert West's entire goal is to make things their true selves, and himself included. But that's, for us, that's what it is. And secondly, it is a wonderful fluorescent Easter color.
Oh yeah, that's true.
But yeah, we're full on its face. It's a Reanimator homage.
Okay, yeah, because I think all of us got that, because I know, like, green just seems to be that color that people like, and I did a short film called Skull Evil, which is also called Green Mist, and the mist is green. I could have made it red, I could have made it yellow, I could have made it pink, but I chose green because green seems to be that color. And even if it did come before Reanimator, I think Reanimator kind of sealed that green color kind of means like death or reawakening,
right?
So that's, yeah, I've been thinking about that lately when I see films that deal with like a green serum. And
when you think about it, the idea of green and monstrosity and things that shouldn't be are pretty rampant, even from the 30s and 40s. Even though they were black and white, everyone assumed the Frankenstein monster was green, of course, and Gilman and all the production posters.
Oh yeah.
And then you look at things like Return of the Living Dead. Wasn't the mist green that sprayed out?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah, it's all green. Everything.
Maybe it's just our heritage. We're just paying attention to our horror heritage.
Yeah, there you go. I think now it's almost unintentional. You just, somebody's like, I need a mist or a serum. Just make it green, and it does. Yeah, it looks good on film. So or digital, depending on, I guess, how you're shooting. So
right, and it fit the thematic aspects of it too, with the comic book colors and the Easter colors, because a lot of it, there's a lot of neon pinks and purples and some yellows in there, and we didn't really use green much in the lighting until the serum happens, and then that way we can kind of announce Rottentail's there.
Yeah, and I noticed one that when you're in the lab, which is Star, and it says that it is don't tell me because I have it written down here, Star chewing gum.
Yes.
I'm assuming that that's a front because they're doing illegal stuff in there.
Correct.
Are they actually making bubble gum, or does it just say Star bubble gum?
I did not explore it, but I would assume it's a front.
So if an inspector walked in, there'd be no bubble gum to be seen. It would just be like an empty room.
There'd be a lot of money going to that inspector.
There you go. And there's a lot of blood, which is very red, and a lot of body parts being thrown around. Were you afraid at all of like any sort of distribution company, or these days like a streaming company saying, oh, that's too violent, you got to cut that?
No, not so much. We fall firmly in the cartoon violence area, so it's not as realistic as it could be, and it's all told with a joke as well. So all the violence is incredibly tongue-in-cheek, and we walked into it thinking, okay, if someone does ding this, then we'll shave a few seconds off here. But now we've got the unedited, whatever unrated version release that we can do later on too. So, but it wasn't a big concern. Always go over, because it's harder to make more later than it is to cut some out.
Right, and so there's an even more violent version of this.
No, this was it. This is they let it run. They just let it go.
Yeah, because it's I watched it on Tubi, and what I found interesting is, and I don't know if Tubi does their own subtitles or not, or like if you have to supply them, but they were actually leaving out words. So at times, if somebody said fuck wouldn't be in the subtitle. I find that weird. Like you can have nudity, violence, but God forbid that subtitle have the word fuck in it.
Right, and that's a pretty much 100% Tubi thing. So I don't think we had to provide our subtitle script to Tubi. I don't think you have to provide much to Tubi. It's probably auto-generated.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe, because I mean, Axis 1 and 2 are on Tubi. I wasn't asked to give them anything at all. So maybe it's just like some sort of auto thing, and maybe they just skip over certain words. I don't know, but I've seen it in other movies too. But I thought it was weird in this one that they left out like a couple religious things. They left out a couple swear words, and I'm like, okay, is this being censored for closed captioning?
Wow,
I don't know.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I like having the subtitles on for everything, just because I see how stuff is structured, and I look at sentences and see how they spell like certain slang words, or if they go, how's that being listed? So I always leave it on just from like a writer's perspective, and then I've noticed that they change stuff from time to time.
Wow, yeah, I'm gonna watch it with the subtitles on. I'm gonna start doing that. Wow, it's in English. I would never put them on.
True. Now you have in Rottentail, there's a lot of obviously Easter type references. The town is Easter Falls.
Yep.
And then, of course, the main character is Peter Cotton. But then you have Anna Banana, which is not Easter. Why Anna Banana?
So we never in the graphic novel gave her last name, and that is the cute name that Peter calls her. So Anna Banana, Bobana, Fana, and so now it's Anna Banana.
So that it may not even be her last name. Her real last name.
No, it's not her last name.
It's just like a cute name that he gives her.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, that explains that. And the music in it, I really liked. I thought it had a really good soundtrack. Is that an original soundtrack?
It's part original soundtrack. So there's a couple of brothers out of Detroit that put it together, and I am blanking on names right now. But we did contract with Magic Ninja Entertainment, and so Twisted and some of the Magic Ninja artists provided a bunch of songs for the soundtrack as well. So if you're not, they're the clown rappers, once a part of Insane Clown Posse's company, and then they broke off. You don't need to know about the clown rapper wars that are happening right now, because there are clown rapper wars happening right now.
That is very weird.
It's incredibly weird. And so, but Twisted did some wonderful stuff for this soundtrack. Then we had one more the song in there, so quite fun.
And the flashbacks. So is the flashbacks where we see the kind of like the it's a Rottentail is in the dark and he's playing it on the projector on the wall, and we're seeing these things from his childhood, and that's where the bully comes in and he gets the rabbit, and then so we kind of see that throughout a little bit. Is that stuff that's happening in the future? Like, is he showing us stuff from his? So, like, is Rottentail dead if he's showing us stuff?
Do you want the answer?
Sure.
Because I mean, it's intentionally vague, because I love that stuff, and I love meta films, and I love films and films, but so yes, he's alive because he's telling us the story. And then final shot, he's actually sitting on a rock looking at the sunset. Very briefly, you can see him as the drone comes over.
Yeah, see, unfortunately, I wasn't able.
Shot, but yeah, so he's alive, and he's.
Was that at the end of the credits? The shot of Rottentail sitting on the rock, was that at the end of the credits?
Yep, credits.
See,
right during the credits.
Okay, see, unfortunately,
yeah, no, it was right before the credits.
Right before the credits. Okay, so yeah, because Tubi doesn't show all the credits; they go in the previews for other things, which is really kind of annoying. So,
did you miss some of Pastor Jake's finest moments?
It's possible, because I got through, I think, the cast. And then they started showing down at the bottom, like, other films that they recommend. And they're like, okay, now we're going to go to this. And it took me away from the credits, and then started showing me a preview for something I didn't care about. And I'm like, I wanted to watch all the credits.
You missed the Pastor Jake commercials. They're wonderful. So, yeah.
Okay, so explain a little bit of that, because people are obviously going to watch this probably on Tubi. I now recommend for them to buy it for those, which I will do. But yeah, explain some of those.
They're amazing. So what we did was we let Billy McNamara. We said, hey, we want to do some promos of Pastor Jake shooting some commercials for people coming to the church, to the revival, and getting saved. So set a price to it and do whatever you want. And he did 3 amazingly funny commercials. Oh, they're so good. And he ad-libbed all of them. The crew was the cast of his crew, of the commercial crew. So yeah, they are worth the price of admission.
Man, okay. So now I was going to buy the film anyways, but now I definitely got to buy it, and I recommend other people who, unless they could see it on someplace else where they can actually watch all the credits. So that sucks that Tubi
Yeah,
does
I think it's off of Prime now. It was on Prime. I think it's off of Prime, but I know that it's still at sourcepress.com or Amazon or wherever you buy DVDs and stuff.
Yeah, it's almost like censoring the artist. You know, just let the film play. You know, maybe in its last 10 seconds or something, or 30 seconds, but don't do it like right after the, you know, when the credits start.
That's man, ain't no laws on Tubi. Tubi's the wild digital west.
Yeah, and I appreciate my stuff being on there, but yeah, I don't like missing stuff from other people's films. So now you chose not to act in this one, even though you were an active part in it. Now, some of the things that I have you down here for, of course, Backwoods, you 1 and 2, you played Luther. You were also in a Ron Ford film called Deadly Scavengers. And I'm going to be having Ron Ford on soon too.
He's so much fun.
Yeah, Tiki. He's going to talk about Tiki.
I love Tiki.
Yeah, I own it. So I watched it. I go, ooh, I got to get Ron on here. You were also in a film that I enjoyed quite a bit called The Death Factory Bloodletting, which is a sequel, kind of a sequel to David Sterling's Death Factory.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
it's kind of like a side bullet.
Yeah, and you played a character named Rubber Love.
That's true.
You got some interesting names going here. In Machined and Reborn, you're Motorman Dan.
Yep.
But then I also saw on IMDb, it says writer, and this is something new, Roller Boogie Massacre. What's that?
That doesn't exist. That's one of those weird IMDb attached things. So Lance Poland, who made Slices and Werewolves in Heat, and was an associate producer on Bloody Bloody Bible Camp, and he just directed another Plan from Outer Space that I helped a little bit with. He is wanting to make Roller Boogie Massacre forever, and he asked me if I would write it when funding was happening, and I was like, sure. And 8 years later, it's still sure. But
it's a good title, and I like the poster for it. It should get done.
Oh yeah, it's right in my wheelhouse of like 80s goofiness.
Yeah, when I drive home to and from work, there's a roller skating rink, and I always think of course the cheesy films like Roller Boogie and Skate Town USA and stuff, but I also think of slasher films that could take place at a at a roller rink. So we need to have more of those, I think,
or at least one.
Yeah. One thing I did find to be pretty funny was General Phelps, his hard penis, because he injects himself with some of that green stuff, and him walking around the hallways trying to find Rottentail, and he just has this giant boner sticking out.
Right.
That the camera very conveniently is positioned to see that. So that was fun, and having Rottentail kind of throw him around with it was. I mean, people must have just been laughing while doing that.
That was on purpose. That was, no holds barred. Not in the graphic novel. I was surprised that Tank actually agreed to do it, and there we go. That's Daddy's jet fuel, baby.
And with General Phelps, now he turns into, there's a very Frankenstein-ish type scene. And he turns into, I tried to find a name for that character, but I guess like a mandroid type of thing. Dingle Dork, because he's called that twice, by Rottentail, is the closest name I could find to him. And so he's a very different character from the rest of the movie.
So, yeah, I mean, in real life, would we name him? And we're just lazy, so he was not named. He's just Phelps. He's just, bro, let's call him Uber Phelps. That'll be the good one. He's Uber Phelps.
Okay.
And so yeah, we needed and arguably we may have gotten a little too crowded at the end and wanted to put all the fun stuff in and get all of our spots in and made it a little too clustery. But I don't know. I think the fun part of raising Phelps from the dead, and it's just the penis shock and the boner revival. That's who else has that? How can we say no? Yeah, it's clustery, but how can we say no?
Well, and his head survives. So and as we know, in many classic films, the head does survive. They saved Hitler's brain, and Astro. I think it's a Mark of the Astro Zombies. They have the fake John Carradine head. So you got to save the head, because you never know, he may need to come back in part 2.
Did he survive the birth though?
That's right.
I don't know. I mean, I know. I'm not going to tell you though.
Well, we got to leave some surprises.
There are.
Okay.
Son of Rottentail is currently being created.
Oh, okay. Son of Rottentail. Okay. All right. Okay. I like that. And the kind of to go back to the Rottentail like look and everything. How extensive were like the makeup and prosthetics that the actor had to wear?
So Corin, to get in, once they got it down pretty well, it was 2 hours in and an hour and a half out of the suit. We had some stunt guys wearing pieces of it. So there was 3 different suits. There was the acting suit, there was the close-up head, and then there was the stunt suit. And the stunt suit was the one that kind of got abused by all the things, and it was mainly you're slipping on the mask and the hands, and we're doing cutaways and then stunt guy stuff. But when he had to go into the acting suits, then it was some pretty intense makeup. Tank wasn't as much in Phelps at the end. He was probably about 45 minutes in, 45 out for the Uber Phelps. But yeah, Corin was there before everyone showed up, and thereafter everyone left.
Well, yeah, it looked really good. So there was no seams to be seen there. So the effects person did a very good job, or makeup person did a very good job on that.
They're wonderful.
Now I'm kind of jumping all over the place because I kind of kept remembering things while watching it, but when Rottentail is going to Easter Falls, he goes past like a freeway sign, and I was wondering if these names meant anything. There's Lake Pleasant, there's of course Easter Falls, and then Payson. Do the other names mean anything, or are they just random names?
They're just Arizona names.
Okay.
So yeah, we put Easter Falls firmly in Arizona because that's where we shot a vast majority of it, mostly in Phoenix.
Oh, okay. So no hidden meanings. Well, that's a little disappointing, but
one tries.
Yeah. And then there's on top of there being a lot of practical effects, I noticed that there were also a lot of visual effects,
right?
Too. And especially for like the lab scenes and things like on General Phelps, on his face, like the side of it kind of looked like it might have been like a VFX. What were those like getting in there?
So I am not a big post-production person. I can like look at things and say I don't like it, but actually actively doing a thing, I'm not the guy. So, but our director Brian Skiba was also the main editor. He did the assembly cut, and so he worked with the digital company. We had a couple different digital companies. I think one was for light effects, so like the raising of Phelps was a different company than some of the CGI modeling. And to be fair, it's pretty limited. It's mostly practical effects, which I'm really happy with. I'm a big fan of practical effects. And it fits the time period too. It's set in the 80s, so that's something we really like. So it was Brian really directed those and got those in a place they needed to be. They took a long time. The vast majority of post production were these effects.
So were you always, when you wrote the script, did you say, okay, well, this scene can be practical, this scene is going to be a VFX? Or was it just kind of hit and miss?
So we attempted everything practical. And
Okay.
that's that was the goal, as much as possible, to be as practical as possible. And it's in a there's the fiction and post crowd, and there's the digital crowd, and I think that all of us, we were in the 40 and up club, so we were all fans of practical effects, and it really was a thing that was important.
Okay. And I did bring up that you didn't want to act in this film, but
Right.
but we didn't answer that. So why this one?
Okay, so, and I'm trying to put this diplomatically. Has anyone ever heard of anything I've ever acted in organically? No. So that means that I'm a jinx. And there was no way I'm going to put the stink on this one, because we needed this to be successful.
And so do you feel that the film was then successful with you being out?
Well, I don't know if it's correlation or causation, but we had a theatrical run, and it's all over the place, and the graphic novel's still going, and people talk about it. So I'm gonna go with yes. Me not being there helped.
But so now, with that mindset, do you feel that anything after that you're saying nope, can't be in it, I can't be in this now, I can't act in these type of things?
I usually don't now. There's some physical limitations that I've run into in recent years, but other than that, it doesn't appeal anymore. It was fun, and it was a great thing to do, and I have a nice body of 80-ish films, and some great like music videos and MTV runs, and that was cool. That was great. But really, I think as an entertainment professional, as an actor, I'm a better writer.
So with technology today, where somebody could say, hey David, I would love to have you in my film, all you need to do is just film yourself sitting in a chair talking on a phone, is that something that you would do, or is just acting just now just out of the question, no matter how easy it would be?
I don't know. I think it would depend. My current position means that everything I do is kind of in at least at this community level kind of spotlight. So I got to be kind of picky and choosy as the face of a school, the face of a university. So it would depend on what it is, but I don't think I'm against it. Just no one asks, so I don't think it really matters.
Well, you never know, I might be asking. So
for you, definitely.
Oh, thank you.
I've done voice work since, so I've done some fun voice stuff since I left, and that's just I can record that anywhere, and that's a little bit of fun.
Well, that's a possibility too. Okay, good. So that's a little bit easier. Yeah, I've done that myself, where people have asked me just to be like a DJ or something like that, or an announcer, right. And then you just hit record and just do your lines 5 times and then send them in.
Just pad out those IMDb credits, look like I'm actually real.
There you go. Yeah, that's exactly what you do. Now, one thing that we hadn't talked about with this are locations, because you had mentioned there is that most of it was shot in you said Arizona?
Yep, in Phoenix.
In Phoenix, Arizona. And
yep.
So what about that old Western town? Where's that? Same place?
That's just north of Phoenix, and it was for rent, and we rented it, and that's what we utilized as our old Western town. It was an old Western town that was used in movies in the 70s. I think Billy Jack may have been shot partially there, if I'm not mistaken. And then the church we blew up is one that we built on set. So we kind of built that church to blow it up. There was a church there, and in the middle of production, it was this incredibly bizarre thing that happened in Phoenix. There was a flash rain in the middle of the desert. It was the coldest and wettest time I've ever spent in the desert, and the church that was there was destroyed. It was washed out. Oh. So the crew hurriedly built that old church that Pastor Jake was trying to get the gold out of, and then we blew it up.
Oh, geez. So all of that, all the like the Star, you know, chewing gum company and the labs and all that stuff was in. That's all Phoenix.
Right, and most of it was at, I believe it's called Sun Studios in Phoenix. So most of the interior locations, Sun Studios is huge. They have it's this old warehouse office building, and so you could manipulate any of the rooms for anything in Western Town. And the exteriors were at a couple different places throughout Phoenix.
Okay. Um, and let's see, what else do I have for this? Now I have you also down for that. Like I said, I'm kind of jumping back and forth, but
Mhm.
you approved the designs for things. So did you want them
Yeah.
to look close to the comic, or how did you go about that?
So by approve the designs, I think it was probably more of Travis being nice to me and saying, "Here, what do you think?" As what I think happened. But it was I was ready to for anything. You know, I knew who the design team was, and I'm like, just give me some, get whatever you think, whatever's going to work, because what we designed for the comic, it's incredibly difficult to do. In real life, it's really like the ears up bunny guy. It's a bunny guy, and what they did is they took this idea and the concept, and they really kind of flipped it on its head. You know, he's a hairless bunny. He's like a hybrid. He's not a bunny man. He's a man bunny, and it looks gross. He's like one of those hairless cats. It was great. It was great. What they did was wonderful. So it wasn't much to approve, but like, oh my god, you're awesome. Thank you.
And as an on-set consultant, what did you do on set? What does that mean to people who don't know what an on-set consultant means?
Well, I made up the title because I was on set just doing all kinds of different things anyway. So what I really did was work with the actors about character and theme and what we were looking for. I also ate a lot of chili,
Okay.
and I ate some more chili, and then I palled around with the actors like I was still an actor again. But really, what it did was not approving anything or making sure things are running right. It was really having some very frank discussions and some nice talks about where these characters are from and where they're going and why they do what they do. And because everyone there was so invested in keeping the spirit of the graphic novel that I was incredibly grateful. I mean, to this day, I think it's fun, even if the execution is a little off. I think the graphic novel is fun. I think the spirit of it is mischievous, and like I said, it flips tradition on its head, and it's really what the cast was invested into, and I know Brian was because we'd had long discussions before, but to get to talk to the cast and take their ideas and their concepts, and a lot of the stuff that they've done has gone to the Son of Ra sequel.
Oh, okay. All right. And now I also have here, because we talked yesterday, and you told me engineered director. What is that?
You broke up.
Engineered director. What does an engineered director do?
Oh, so I was an engineer director. I kind of engineered the director. So that's when I talked about Brian and I having the same management company and knowing each other and being involved. So he was planting the seeds there of doing this project. I was planting the seeds of having him on this project. And so we kind of engineered the one last time working together.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, that makes sense. And what attracted you to Brian as the person to direct this?
So we'd known each other for years. And like I said, I produced Blood Moon Rising for him way back in the day. And I knew that he got it. So his sense of humor is similar to mine. We're both incredibly irreverent, and I knew that we would be able to push the envelope together. And because it's I don't know how to phrase it perfectly, but when we're doing things together, we tend to go farther than we would normally on our own. And by farther, I mean, more offensive, more more odd, grosser. I mean, there's no boner fight in the graphic novel, but there is a great big boner fight in the movie.
And the when you were casting the film, were you looking for like particular looks or anything like that?
For a couple of people, yes. For Peter, we needed a very distinct look, and it's we needed prototypical nerd, and because prototypical nerd communicates something that hours of exposition won't, and so the right look before the transformation would be wonderful. And that's it's Parker Lewis. Parker Lewis is the look.
Well, he can't lose. I mean, that's for sure.
Well, he lost when they canceled, but so that was the only real look that I was really concerned with. If you look at the graphic novel, like General Phelps, it looks a lot like Colonel Sanders, and Tank Jones is anything but Colonel Sanders. So we really went with who was going to deliver. We wanted some name value too. So Billy McNamara for Pastor Jake has some name value. Dominic Swain has name value. And do they look anything like the comic counterparts? No, not really. Corin had the name value and the appropriate look that we needed for Peter. So again, it all revolves around Peter and Rottentail. If that worked.
So when you're casting these type of things, because you're going off of a pre-existing, like IP, that it's like for myself, I now write, like when I was going to school, I was told you type, Joe, white, 27, long hair. But now I mean, I haven't done that in a long time. So I mean, right. I'll just say Joe, 20s. That's about it. That way you can have anybody play Joe. Joe could even be, I mean, technically, Josephine, or it could be Joseph. So you could almost have anybody play it, and you're not really limiting yourself to that. But when you already have an existing, like a graphic novel or something, was that because you said that, that General Phelps looks like Colonel Sanders in the comic, but he's African American in the film. Is that right. An issue at all? I mean, does anybody go, but wait, in the comic, he looks like Colonel Sanders?
Yeah, not at our level. So like, making Captain America, big redheaded ginger would set people off like,
oh yeah,
craziness. But at our level, it's really most people oddly have not read the graphic novel then watch the movie. It's kind of like separate worlds. So the best thing that we do is, like, based on the hit graphic novel, is on the movie, and soon to be a meet. And so there's really no preconceived notion of what things should look like. If it were bigger, if this were like an Iron Man level or Batman level, there's a distinct fan base that wants a specific thing. But we were working largely without a net with it because we didn't really have one. And the people that got the graphic novel and watched the movie, they really didn't say anything about it. I didn't really hear anything from anyone that saw it aside from, oh, that's a funny movie, or your movie sucks. And either way, it's fine. Thank you for the royalties. But
yeah,
I mean, I don't care. You can hate it. And but yeah, so I don't. If it were a bigger comic hit, we may have had some pushback. But yeah, and that's the best part. When Brian and Travis and I were putting it together, we were just like, whoever's the best, go for what we need. And the movie needs a tank more than it needs a Colonel Sanders, and the movie needs, a Billy McNamara more than it needs someone that looks like, Pastor Jake, the big fat sweat hog from the graphic
novel. Okay, all right, yeah, that makes sense, because because people do give a lot of flack to these type of things, that if somebody doesn't match what the book is, or the comic, or the whatever. And I remember I even did that once, with the Daredevil with Ben Affleck, that it was Michael Duncan Clark is Kingpin, and I thought, but Kingpin's white in the comic book, why are they hiring, and then you see the movie and you're like, well, shit, he's good. Why do I care if he's white from the comic? What do I give a shit? He does a great job. So I think that kind of clicked me into a different mode, that you can have somebody different play these characters, and as long as they do a good job, what does it matter? But some people have an issue with it.
And then, but what a lot of people don't realize is the job is different. The comic job is different than the movie job. There's a different purpose for it, and there's a different reason for that person to be there. So the Michael Clark Duncan is a different thematically Kingpin than like the Wilson Fisk of the Daredevil show with the other guy.
I don't know his name, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah, the
Vincent D'Onofrio. And so, they have different purposes. They're different Kingpins. And so the comic Rottentail is different than the movie Rottentail. In the sequel comic, we've adopted the movie Rottentail because more people have seen the movie than read the comic. So, that's another case of where we're kind of retrofitting things in that way.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit also on just how it's done and how it's represented. I'll use Ghostbusters 2016. I think that so many people have an issue with it being for women because they didn't pay, like, let's say, tribute to the other two movies. And I thought, well, one way of doing this is they could have, started the film or something with, you see a wall of photos of all the previous Ghostbusters from over the years. And some are men, some are women, some are white, some are black, and, some are Asian, it doesn't matter. And in some cases, there's 4 men, in some cases there's 4 women, in some cases there's 2 men and 2 women, or 3 women and 1 man, whatever it is, or 1 man. And I think that would have helped with people, with this transition from going from 4 guys to 4, women. And there was this abrupt jump that people like, whoa, wait a minute, what are you guys doing? Because you're not even mentioning the other 2 films. But I think if you take something and change it dramatically, you have to have a good reason for it, and especially if it's something as big as Ghostbusters. But if you have a smaller movie that's based on something like you were saying, it doesn't matter, because you're going for performance and not like a physical appearance.
Possibly. You and I both could be falling into old guy status and forgetting that the 2016 Ghostbusters is the only Ghostbusters for a group of people. That's the only one that ever existed. That's the one that came out when I was a kid. That's why, when you talk, like, I do a lot of Comic Cons, or I used to, and when you talk to a Star Wars fan, and they're only a fan of the things that came out when they were 12, everything else is shit, and they bitch about it. So the 12-year-olds that watch the 2016 Ghostbusters, in 20 years from now, the nostalgia may be about that one. And so we could just be an old guy world.
That's possible. That is very true, because it does have its fans. But that will all go away once the new one comes out. So, Afterlife will hopefully dominate that. I'm hoping.
Those 12-year-olds are now 17. So yeah, who knows? It's so fandom is so weird right now. And I like kind of flying under the radar sort of thing. So, the people that get it. And I've known for years, which is another reason why I don't do much acting anymore, is that my audience is niche. It's a niche audience. And I don't appeal to everyone. The stuff I do doesn't appeal to everyone. But the people that it does appeal to really dig it.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I guess it just maybe matters your age and all that type of stuff, because it's very vocal right now with you know, cancel culture and being woke and right now the big fight with, you know, over Kevin Smith with Masters of the Universe and
No.
you know, which is a whole other video by itself. But um, but with that being said, so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about graphic novels. I thought that
Yeah.
that'd be interesting, because you may be the only person I talk to about it on here. So
Nice.
yeah. So what is the difference? I'll start with this. What is the difference between a comic book and a graphic novel?
So a comic book is traditionally what you look at as the floppy comics, that they are either a one shot or they're part of a series. They're about 20 to 25, 30 pages long, and they're designed to be a sequential story that you buy monthly, weekly, whatever it is. And a graphic novel is generally a larger, self-contained original story as a graphic novel, and then a collection of floppy comics as a trade paperback.
Okay.
So we tried to release Rottentail as a comic book, 3 issues, didn't work out. So we collected it as an original graphic novel.
And how many graphic novels have you done?
Oh shit.
Off the top of your head.
10-ish?
10? Okay. Are they all original, or have you done sequels and stuff to existing properties?
I haven't done a sequel yet, which I'm working on. So the sequel to Rottentail will be the first sequel I think that I do. I did get contracted to write a sequel to Manos, Hands of Fate. So I might turn that into a graphic novel, because they never paid, you know, like most of the people in film world, which is why another reason why I like publishing and graphic novels. Those people are honest. They pay, oddly enough.
So with something like Manos, is that is there like a copyright thing with that, or is that public domain?
So I believe the characters are in public domain. It's one of those weird little things wherein I believe some people believe it's public domain. The son of the original guy thinks it's not, but he doesn't have any way of proving anything. So, I mean, I was talking to them about it, the producer's son, and then they just really want nothing to do with it anymore. So I don't know. It's been sitting on the hard drive for a while. I'll send it to John Ward of Dark Park Films. You can make it.
There we go. Hey, that's what it says right down there. There we go. I never know which direction to take my hand. It's always the opposite of what I see. So what does it, I mean, how do you start a graphic novel? Like, where does this idea come from?
It's almost like anything. It's like a movie. It's like a novel. It's like a stage play. I think knowing what the medium is first is something that I do now that I didn't do before. And so there's not that issue of translating motion and color and things like that. So the way I generally think of it now is I think in terms of graphic novel first, and maybe movie later someday, if possible, if someone cares. And therefore, my ideas, I think the scope is much bigger. So when I wrote Rottentail, I was writing, and you probably know how this feels, writing for a minuscule budget. You're planning on having no money, so you don't really go big. You don't really go big. I think my ideas now are massive. They're huge. I can blow up Jupiter if I feel like it. And I can have, I've got a graphic novel coming out next year called Six from the Abyss, which is essentially the Expendables with a bunch of real life dead serial killers breaking out of hell. And nice. And I can do it. Hell can be anything I want it to be.
Sure.
And it's only limited by, pen and ink. So that, I think that's the humanly possible and is weird. And I think the scripting of Rottentail really kind of opened that up for me, because I was still writing, limited little stories, heavy thematically and deep stories, but scope was very small. And, and I've always been fascinated with like one location movies. I love them. I love a single location movie. And I love things that are quiet and unnerving. But and there's room for that. But now there's also a place where I can go big, and I never realized I could go big before.
So with a graphic novel or something like Rottentail, I mean, you could, I mean, you said that you were looking more at a smaller scale, but with a comic book or even a novel, I mean, you could have Rottentail go into space, and you could have massive explosions. And then if somebody goes, well, wait, that wasn't in the movie, it's like, well, that's a movie, you know, that's different than what a graphic novel is.
And that's the difference between this movie and graphic novel. This is why it's weird, is the movie's so much bigger than the graphic novel. So we went opposite, and now the subsequent stories are going to follow along the kind of the feeling of the movies.
So will Son of Rottentail, would that also have like a comic or a graphic novel tied to it?
It's going to be a graphic novel. It may be a movie, who knows?
Okay.
But it's for sure going to be a graphic novel. And we'll see, you know, if we can recoup some of that, more of that budget, and talk someone else into funding Son of Rottentail.
Okay.
But I know Corin's down. I know the people that survive from the original cast, not going to say who, are down.
Oh, good. Now, when you come up with this idea and stuff, how is it written for a graphic? Is it like a script, and then they have to turn it? Is it formatted the same way as the screenplay?
No, it's so if you look at a comic book page, you got a page with different panels on it. Essentially, what you're doing is describing each of those panels for that page. So what you're looking at is not only like how scenes are developed and how segments are developed and how acts are developed. You have to make sure your page flow is working right. So it'll be like 8 panels, and then description of each one of the panels in detail with whatever dialogue's there, whatever captions are there. Then you get to your next page, and is it flowing right? So your next page has to follow along from that first one to make sure your flow is right and eye lines are working. So a lot of it's kind of like writing like a visual artist.
How do you figure out, like, if it's a comic, that it's 3 issues, or if it's a graphic novel, it's how many, 30 pages or whatever? How do you figure that out?
That it usually goes on scope of story. So you'll know after you've done it a while. So like your average 80-minute movie, 90-minute movie is a good 60 to 70 page graphic novel. You can pretty much gauge it like that. But you look at your scope of story, and if your story warrants 8 issues, it's probably going to be a bigger issue with subplots and everything running through it. So it really goes on how big the story is you're trying to tell, and how long it is you're trying to tell.
So, because like for, let's say, a screenplay, average screenplay is normally 120 pages. So 2 hours roughly on screen. Is there an average amount that you would look at for like a comic book or a graphic novel? Or is it just like, how do you take what you've written and you go, okay, this is comic 1, this is comic 2, this is comic 3. Crap, we could only do 2 pages for comic 4, that type of thing.
So you design it first. So kind of like how you outline a movie, you would outline it first, and then you would those breaks would be built in already.
Okay. And do you do any of the art in it? Any of, or do you just stick with the writing?
Oh no. My only job skill is I hire well.
There you go. And how do you hire well? I mean, who do you know to take your vision and make it the way you want it?
In the beginning, it was that weird little website. But now we've been on, we've gone international with a bunch of stuff on tours and Comic Cons. So I am meeting artists and writers and creators every day. And really the network is just built from there. So, Source Point Press is a great place to be. A lot of people want to be with them, and they release like 10 new titles a month. So it's a not a major label, but it's a top indie label, and the opportunity to meet talented people is probably the best thing that's happened there.
And what do you feel about now with the way that technology is? Do you prefer having that, or do you think people should have like a physical copy, or do you mind if they just have like a PDF file that they, get online?
Well, I don't care how they read it. I'm a physical copy guy. I like it. I like the feel of it. I grew up with it, but I'm old. And I think that turning a page and meeting someone and having them sign a book is cool. It's a lot of fun. It's one of those value added things. So I mean, if I could, I would prefer everyone to get a physical copy. But I'm also not against digital copies as well, because there's absolutely no delivery costs. I'm not hauling boxes of things anywhere. And it's getting sent by Amazon to do it. But I like meeting people and talking about this stuff.
Yeah, it's one thing that I do like about digital is that you can buy, let's say, Amazing Fantasy, like the first Spider-Man, for nothing.
15.
Yeah, I mean, it's just nothing. It's just like whatever the cost of that download is to, or just if it's on a site where you could just open it and read it there, you're not spending thousands of dollars for something that you just want to read, something that you don't even have to, it's like, I don't want it because it's too expensive, but I would like to read it. So that's a nice way of going about it. But newer things, I think it'd be nice to have like a physical copy of.
I mean, it's fun. I mean, I'm a collector too, and I try and curb that because my family gets pissed. But my comic book street cred is that I have every Swamp Thing appearance ever. Absolute favorite.
So what have you thought of the adaptions of Swamp Thing?
I think they're all great for different reasons. The Wes Craven movie was a lot of fun, and its cheesy rubber suitedness. And that came out before the Alan Moore run on Swamp Thing, so before it got dark and monstery. Jim Wynorski's return of Swamp Thing is just ridiculously stupid, but fun. The USA show was great. I loved the recent HBO Max adaptation. That was wonderful. There really hasn't been more than that. Those are the only ones.
So it's interesting. So I think Swamp Thing is a known. I've obviously known of him, but I wonder if you're going to take something like Suicide Squad, the new one, the Suicide Squad, and give us kind of these unknown characters, and then with some of these other films, they're now using the lesser known characters of why something like, Guardians of the Galaxy, I know that's Marvel, but I wonder why Swamp Thing hasn't been brought to the big screen again as part of one of these Justice League type films. It seems that would be one to do.
I mean, I'd sign on for it. I think that it probably, so that Alan Moore run on Swamp Thing was so absolutely iconic. And I think that may be something that they don't want to delve into quite yet, mainly because it's deep and it's dark and it's disturbing. And the HBO Max show was good for it, but maybe it's just too difficult to tell in 90 minutes or 2 hours. I don't know, but I'm absolutely down. I'm ready. If anyone wants to call, I'm right here.
Call that guy. Oh, see, I got the wrong thing. There we go. Call that guy. Call that guy. So to go back to your graphic novel for a second, you got the guys, do you get the comic book done and then find like distribution for it, or do you find distribution first?
It's like a movie. So usually you have to get it done and you find distribution for it. I'm lucky now that I'm working with a publisher, so I can have a harebrained idea and roll in with a half-crocked idea, and then we'll try it out and give it a shot. But I usually project manage my own stuff. I'm kind of particular that way. There's things that I want, and then and the time frames, and I'm very particular about getting information out media-wise. So I don't want to release anything before there's something to show. I don't want to blow our social media wad long before we've got a book ready to come out. So I'm pretty controlling in that aspect of it. But this is not indicative of the average graphic novelist experience. So.
Yeah, I find that I'm, especially on social media, I'm pretty much a whore when it comes to that type of stuff. So I'll promote everything and whatever it is. I don't care. I'll throw ideas. I'll make fake posters for stuff to see if what people's comments are, and if one seems to grab their attention, like, oh, okay, well, maybe I should do that one. So, and I know other people are pretty quiet about the stuff that they do. So, which is a lot safer, I think.
I hate promising something that and it goes wrong. You know, I mean, I've had the bottom fall out of so many different things. You know, the only way to succeed is more than you've succeeded. And I hate promoting something and it's just falling apart. I mean, I made a post 12 years ago, I think, about getting the Manos job, and look where that happened. You know, someone will still ask, is that ever happening? Like, no.
Yeah, I've seen some people on Facebook, and they're you know, they're filmmakers, and but they'll put up like a whole, it'd be like a whole post, and it will be like, oh, look what's coming soon, this film, this film, this film, this film, this film, this film. And it's like, can you just kind of focus on the film you're working on now? I mean, you know, granted, I've done that a couple of times with things, but it's more of a feel. I'm kind of feeling stuff out, but these people are like, we're making it, but you haven't made the last film.
Let me fix their post for them. Look what I just finished the first draft on. This one, this one, this one.
Yeah, as long as you got something there, I think people come up with these cool titles and then just, you know, throw it out there and say, I think that you got to let people know that it's like a test or a joke or whatever it is, and not be like, oh yeah, we're going to definitely make these, but you haven't made anything yet. You know?
That's the hard part. It's easy to talk about making movies.
Oh yeah, it's easy to do a post on it. So
I've got a hard drive full of unproduced screenplays. full.
Well, there you go. There's another person to talk to. So if
anyone, come on, bring them.
Yeah,
whatever
if you're not interested in writing, just directing, just talk to David here. He's got a whole hard
fire sale. You can have them.
Yeah. All right. So last few questions I'm going to ask you, and then I will let you go. What's happening with Rotten? I know that there's the sequel, but like, what's happening with Rottentail right now? You can see it on Tubi, but what else is going on with the film? Is like, can you get a physical copy?
Tubi. You can get a physical copy at sourcepointpress.com. Or that's for the special Blu-ray limited edition, straight through us. Ammo Content has the DVD still, so that's the distributor, and that is on Amazon. You can pull those there. It's on Tubi. It just came off of Prime. There was that old theatrical run, which I'm so appreciative of still, because I never had one before, and it was pleasing to me. And I believe that we're still working on international stuff. The hard part about international sales with a Judeo-Christian based film is that it won't sell to any non-Judeo-Christian based markets.
Oh, well, I didn't even think about that. That's true. So yes, that would make sense. So yeah.
So don't go to a place that doesn't have an Easter and trying to sell the Easter movie.
Well, I guess for something like Xmas, I could just shoot Xmas and then go back and reshoot it, but call it Hanukkah. And then just
Axika,
Axika, yeah, I could do that. And then that way, you know, it reaches a little more of a base. So
Kwanzaa.
Oh, there we go. There's a third base. Yeah, I like that too.
With you. Solstice murders.
I like it. And once the film came out and it was available and people were seeing it, did you see a bump in your career? Has anything happened?
No. Lamely, no. So writers are writers, right? And any normal human is hard pressed to name a writer of anything outside of a novel. So no, I mean, within the comic industry, I think it bolstered a bunch of goodwill I already had. In the horror industry, I think it brought my name back a little bit. So, you know, like the mid-2000s with the Lionsgate stuff, and then the graphic novels, like, oh yeah, he was that Motorman Dan guy. That was fun. But I mean, no, nothing appreciably. And to be fair, I don't really focus as much time on it. I'm largely focused on the old day job. But which I am completely blessed, because the films and the graphic novels and all those things were the street cred that I needed as a professional with the right degree sets to do what I do now. So I'm
Oh,
quite
good.
happy.
And let people know what do you do? What do you do now?
I am the Dean of Undergraduate Studies at Cleary University, so a
Oh,
small
okay.
business college.
Nice. So all that, yeah. So then all that, all that education on distribution and writing and all of that, even though it's film, you can still apply that to other things in business. So that, yeah, that must help out a lot.
It does. It does. I mean, I got really lucky. In Arizona, you'll laugh. The producer of Backwoods and I, we shot that in Chicago, and we both ended up living in Phoenix. And he got asked to start the film program at Grand Canyon University, and he brought me in. So I started in academia as designing a digital film program for a university, and that led into me getting wrapped up into teaching, and then my background in writing and English, and so that moved all of this stuff forward to where I'm at right now. But it was Backwoods and terrible movies and writing comics and novels, and I was lucky enough to be the writer in residence at Grand Canyon and for their theater department. So who would have thunk that guy that guy.
Yeah, that's actually a better picture of you right there. Where's my finger? Yeah.
So the Backwoods 2, that's Mama.
I never know where my finger is. Right there. That's Mama right there.
Oh, sometimes she's
on the front. Yeah.
Yep. Mama Jim Edberg, Mama.
And these were I'll have to have you back to talk about these films at some point, because they're interesting. So with
holy crap. I tell you what, if you make it the Backwoods and Blown trilogy.
So two questions left. One is so I normally will say this to like a director of films, which is how has like the new editing softwares and things, production software helped, over the years, because a lot of people I talk to, they've been doing this now for like 10 years or so. Things have changed. So for you being more of a writer, how have these things changed over the years since you've done movies, graphic novels, plays? I mean, you've done everything. How is it these days? How is this new technology helping you compared to, in the past?
I think for the most part, it's easier to work with people all over the world. I just did a graphic novel with the artist was in Scotland, and I'm here in Michigan. The colorist was also in Michigan, but the letterer is in Missouri. So, we're all over the world. And I think, like you were talking about earlier, like just shooting something at home and sending it out. So that ease of communication is better. From a producer standpoint, the advancement in post-production technologies has really opened up the scope of things, right? Back 20 years ago, we would literally say fix it in post as a joke, knowing that we never could, and now we kind of can. And right. So it's garbage in, it's garbage out, so you want something to work with. But back in the Columbia College and film school days in Chicago's Grant Park, I had a wind-up Bolex that I'm shooting Super 16 in the middle of Grant Park in the mid 90s. So, it's been a trip. So I think that the technological advancements have done that. It's also opened a bunch of doors for people, and absolutely anyone could be a filmmaker now, even when they shouldn't be. And
yeah. I mean, that's the thing that I think is a little bit of a problem is back in the day. I mean, I'm 55. So when I went to film school, we were shooting on, Super 8 millimeter, 16, using flatbeds, reel to reel stuff. And you really, messing with sound was a hassle. You really had to be passionate about what you wanted to make to go out there and do it, because shooting on, you had a limited amount of film that you were shooting with, and it was expensive to buy it and get it developed. These days, I think there's just too many people out there that just go, oh, I have a phone, I could just go make a film. Some end up
Right.
being good, but a lot of them just aren't.
Yeah, so there was a point, like you were talking about it, and people prior to us, you're looking at like the Hitchcocks and even the cheesy stuff from the 50s, like Jan and the Pan and the Brain That Wouldn't Die that people laugh at. There's a level of craftsmanship there that doesn't really exist anymore with most, we're talking about the big glut of movies right now. There's a craftsmanship that doesn't exist anymore. The ability for someone to light a scene, even in The Brain That Wouldn't Die, and have that scene be visible on film, pulling on it. They were probably shooting on Super 16. So to get an image on that film that you could see and sync that sound and do multiple takes and be able to have a film, you had to be a craftsperson. And the level of craftsmanship is it's still there. A lot of people are very good filmmakers. A lot of people, we're even working in digital, are very good filmmakers. But whatever crap they've slapped into a Word document to Amazon is now a novelist. Anyone can make a fun poster. We know people that have great posters and then largely home movies on the inside.
Yeah, and that's where I take offense to the whole Ed Wood thing. And and that's something I did mention with a character that you played. You've played the Tor Johnson character in a couple Ed Wood films from many years ago. So you could probably relate to this. Is that everybody says Ed Wood is the worst director ever, and it's like, if you actually look at Plan 9 from Outer Space, it's well shot, it's well lit, the sound is good, the music is good, the editing is good, the performances aren't great, the story is pretty funny, but it does, exactly why the aliens are there, what they're doing, they have a beginning, middle, and end. It's same thing with Bride of the Monster and a lot of his films. And I've never understood, how is this guy the worst filmmaker? I don't get it. Plan 9 looks beautiful.
So he's the worst filmmaker to people that don't watch bad movies. Essentially. So I have a very soft spot for Ed Wood. I wrote a book called Muddled Mind many years ago that detailed Wood's writing career after the movies. He did like 150 novels and just amazing stuff. And so I think the worst filmmakers are the ones that are boring, and Ed Wood was never ever boring.
No, he wasn't. And that's I don't think I mentioned this at the beginning. I wanted to, but I don't think I did, where how I originally met you. And that's and it was basically, I think it was like 2000, 2001. And a friend of mine and myself, I think there were three of us, and we wanted to make a documentary on the fandom of Ed Wood. And this is before the internet was there, but it's not like what it was today. So it was mostly email, phone calls, letters, and that's really about it. And I was in contact with a lot of the Ed Wood people. So, Conrad Brooks, I had a bunch of conversations with. Paul Marco yelled at me on the phone for putting Conrad Brooks' name over his. When I sent out an email of just saying, these are the people I've talked to. And I just went Conrad Brooks, Paul, Conrad Brooks, Paul. And then I just went down. He screamed at me. He actually called me from, I think it was from LA, and called me one day and screamed at me that I put, Conrad Brooks above his name. And, Kathy Wood's lawyer and a bunch of people, the director of the Haunted World of Edward E. Wood helped me out a lot. And he put me in contact with a bunch of people. He probably put me in contact with you too. And you and I had a few conversations through, I think it was through probably email. And just to put that documentary together and to see with what little I had, the work that went into just that, is like, I don't know how somebody could could say that Ed Wood is the worst filmmaker and his movies look horrible. Because there was, I don't know if it exists anymore, but at the time there was the Church of Ed Wood was out there. And I thought that was funny. I met a lot of people from that, from doing that. And they were all, even Paul Marco was fine until he started yelling at me. But yeah, it just amazes me that people think that he's horrible, and then of course you got to got to play an iconic character in a couple of these films based on the books. So were you the guy by chance that were making the Little Ed Wood books?
No, that was a place called Ramble House. That was a Fender Tucker out of Louisiana who actually contributed songs to Backwoods.
Oh,
in
okay.
a weird little Venn diagram of my life.
Yeah, I remember we got these little books, and they were like reprints. They're like they weren't huge or anything. You'd like they're smaller than a paperback, but you could put them in your back pocket. And they released like 4 or 5 of them, and they were kind of cool. I remember picking those up. And
then Bob Blackburn heard about it,
and that was it. Yeah, I remember
was it.
Yeah, I remember the Ed Wood War, where there were the 2 camps of people, and Conrad was on one side and Paul Marco was on the other side, and nobody could agree, and everybody thought that they owned the rights to all the films, and nobody did, and
no one did.
I mean, you talked about the Clown Wars. I mean, this was the Ed Wood Wars that went on until I guess there was only one of them left, which would be Conrad Brooks. So now he's gone. So
Bob Blackburn still fights for Kathy Wood's estate. Tooth and nail.
Oh yeah. Okay. So that sounds familiar. Yeah, I believe that's him. And he helped me out a lot with stuff while at the same time shutting me down. Because according
super good at that.
Yeah, he refused. He sat there and he said that he would give me a whole bunch of advice. He'd tell me people to talk to. He'd tell me how to go. But if I used one frame from any of the Ed Wood movies, if I showed one poster, if I showed one still, they would sue me. And eventually it just became too much of a hassle. It's just like, I'm just not going to deal with this stuff anymore. This is there's no point to it.
I think in his case, after Kathy died, it probably started before when Ed Wood came out, the Tim Burton Ed Wood, they thought they were going to ride this thing, and it was going to be the cash cow. And he did the same thing to you that he did to tons of people, and just the interest faded. And no one was calling anymore because it was so incredibly difficult to get anything done anyway. Wasn't really willing to work with anybody. So, oh well, you blew it, Bob.
Yeah. I had some. I wanted to do an adaptation of, I think it's called Final Curtain. Mm-hmm. And it's like the dialogue is just in the guy's head as he's walking around backstage. I thought, oh, this is perfect because I'm at college and I could just use the stage here, and we don't really even need to use sound or whatever. And he's like, nope, you make that, I will sue you. And it's just like, okay, all right, well, whatever you want to do, man. So
that worked out for him.
Yeah, I guess so. And whatever, long time ago. So so last thing would be, what is there anything that you would like to plug? And that would be past, present, or future, anything you want.
So besides watching Rottentail on Tubi or going to sourcepointpress.com to pick it up, I do have a new thing right here.
Oh.
So it's called Macabre. It's on my website, davidchays.com. Essentially what this is a collection of my short comic stories over the past 20 years.
Oh, hold it up a little bit higher. Let's see, what does it look like inside?
So, and it's got some black and white stuff. It's got some color stuff.
Oh, that is cool.
Fun things. And it's kind of like a travelogue of my mind over the past 20 years with the world's most narcissistic cover. And so that's right now. It's available on my website via Etsy because I'm just doing weird things with it. It's not on Amazon or anything like that. And I might take it to some shows. It's really just a narcissistic sort of thing. But feel free to check it out if anyone will.
Yeah, please, send me links to whatever you would like for me to share so people can check that stuff out, because I would like to check it out too.
Awesome. And of course, Rottentail is still available. So graphic novel and movie, I'll send you the links to the Source Point Press site.
Okay. And some other stuff that you've been in, like Bloody Bible Camp, that's on Tubi.
Yep.
You
Dark
recommended
Places is on Tubi.
Dark Places, that was the other one that you recommended. So you're kind of all over the place.
Yeah, maybe it's my wife calls me a low rentaissance man. So maybe I'm having my new low renaissance moments.
Well, I think she's correct. So
yeah, I'm low rent.
Yeah. Wait, what?
I've been called worse.
So, all right. So we are going to wrap this up. And I appreciate David being here. I've been a fan of David's for a while, even though he didn't even know it, since obviously 2000, 2001, somewhere in there. And so I really do appreciate you being here. And
my absolute pleasure. Anytime.
Yeah, well, thank you. And look, I look forward to you, working on Xmas 5, seeing what we can all come up with. And kind of taking it from there. I just need to get my lazy butt and write part 3 and 4, get those done.
I'm just waiting for you. That's all I'm doing.
A lot of people are waiting for me on stuff. So many factors have stopped me, but it's
the thing. It's part-time fame. Full-time jobs, part-time fame.
Yeah, it's not to make up excuses for myself, but I work a 40+ hour a week job. I do this, I work on other people's stuff, I do acting films. COVID kind of freaked me out for a while, so I didn't want to do anything with that. And now that it's coming back up again, even though I'm fully vaccinated, still want to be safe with that. But I do suffer from, and I've made this known on Facebook, that I do suffer from I'm borderline manic depressive. So if my brain isn't telling me to do something, it's difficult to sit down and just do it. So right. I almost have to force myself to do these one filmmaker things. And once I do it, I love it. And I'm glad that I did. So, and a lot of us out there, I think the COVID definitely brought these things out in people, like depression and all that. Mm-hmm. So we're all affected by it in different ways, but we're all getting back into it. So, which is a good thing. So people are making
good. I'm glad you did this today, because I think this is fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm meeting a lot of great people who I've either never met or just talked to on Facebook. And it's great finally meeting people that I've talked to for like a few years or many years. So
that's awesome.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you again. So, all right. With that being said, I'm going to sign off, and thanks everybody. I appreciate you being here. And I'm John Ward. Going the wrong way.
I am not John Ward.
That's David Hayes. He's
unless you want me to be John Ward. I'm like John Ward's like weird multiverse version of himself.
Well, we both have, I normally shave my head, but we're both bald and we got the beard and stuff. So you're just much more accomplished than I am.
Oh, please.
Oh, please. So, all right, everybody. I will check in with you on the next One Filmmaker, One Film. So where's my hand? I always have to, there we go. All right. Bye, everybody. Appreciate it.